CLCs, collaborative learning cycles, are really a powerful tool that allows us to leverage the expertise of our teachers, their experiences and their observations, really to improve student achievement. They're a piece of a professional development puzzle.
It's an opportunity for professional staff, teachers to sit down and collaborate as a group, to discuss and work on building initiatives, classroom initiatives, to get feedback from one another.
It's an opportunity for you to have some genuine discussion on interventions and curriculum and what's working and what's not working. As a teacher, you rarely get that opportunity to sit with your content colleagues and have those conversations, and this is an avenue that gets you prepared to do that.
CLCs have fostered a different sense of community within Bay City Public Schools. When we meet every once in a while as a district, we have the same goal in mind.
This pulls different people into the equation in different ways. Personally, I like how it's not just by grade level, because it allows people in the building to get the expertise across grade level.
And the fact that we are no longer, this lonely, stranded island by ourselves, it's nice because we can ask each other questions, we can get advice. We're here for one another, and that's like the most important part of teaching, being able to really, have one another to rely on, because it's not an easy job.
I do think our CLCs do help build camaraderie and a support system, get to know each other better, and rely on each other for support even outside of our CLCs.
Educators have a lot of demands on their time, but when that time is allocated wisely, when something happens in a CLC that brings a positive, then you hear teachers say, I learned a lot about this, I'm using this, and that's a very powerful thing.
I have teachers coming up to me in the hallway after, not during the CLC, but after the fact, and saying, wow, that strategy we talked about as a group, my students totally understand it. It's so exciting when it happens outside of the CLC, when they're making those connections and they're seeing that student progress.
Our CLCs happen on Monday afternoons. We come in after school, normally after a long day. So we come in and we always start with a engagement strategy or inclusion activity. Check in on each other, see how we're doing, how the day went, and kind of frame our learning for the day.
We start with laughter and snacks sometimes, and then we get into the nitty-gritty of looking at the data, but then we can leave feeling like we know our next steps.
So we had a focus of written communication, and we started by collecting some data just to see where our students were at. And we got together in our CLC and we created a rubric about what we were going to look for in our written communication. The things that we were looking for were correct capitalization at the beginning of the sentence, and then correct punctuation at the end of the sentence, and making sure it was a complete sentence and it made sense. So then we looked at the data that we had, the student sample, and we analyzed it. Now that we all had the same rubric, we analyzed it similarly. And then we realized we needed some work in this area. So we had some different strategies. In the math classrooms, they did some activities called Which One Doesn't Belong? In ELA, they did some activities where they would be given a question and actually the answer, and all they had to do was write the complete sentence. We brought that data back and we started to see some growth. But clearly not everybody got it in the first round. So we continued those strategies, came up with some other ways to practice writing. We did a few cycles. We realized that now we have a lot more students that are successful by using that rubric to see that we've gone from a few students could use complete sentence to now most of our students are writing in complete sentences.
At Auburn Elementary, we looked at a writing piece, and across our building, we started with our data and knew that that was an area of improvement that we needed to make. So all grade levels, K through 5, looked at that student writing piece, and we were able to find common language that needed to be discussed. Our next teaching points we wanted to make sure that we had made improvements with, and across all grade levels, we were able to sit down as a team, look at all of that, and then take our teaching to the next step. And then that growth that came from it was absolutely amazing.
The benefit of CLCs is that these are cyclical and they're ongoing, and that's the best kind of professional development. They're not just a one and done, hey, this is what we should be doing. It allows for ongoing opportunity of collaboration, reflection, and time to tweak and change based on our learning.
For one of our cycles this year in K2, we were able to identify 3 to 5 students each on the cusp of ELA that needed that extra push. And with the help of our teammates below and above us, we were able to find certain strategies that would work. Was it a simple game? Was it a reading strategy in small group? Was it a whole group activity we could do? And it really pushed us to stay there. And we also used a lot of the district initiative programs that we have, such as iExcel, Amira, Waggle, and we stuck to it. And we encouraged each other. And when we came back after our cycle of inquiry in the middle, we looked at the data. Did those students move? We celebrated those who did. We also celebrated on ways of how we can get those last few and pick some new ones. So it was a group effort and you didn't feel alone.
Through the CLC process, teachers were able to, first of all, have important discussions and conversations of components they liked and what they used and what worked really well with students. And that eventually transitioned into other teachers picking up some of those same approaches and really working together as a team. And that's the ultimate goal of CLC work.
Sometimes teaching can be emotional and it feels like this is working or it feels like this thing isn't working, but you really have to look at the data to see if something really is helping the education of the students and changing the classroom for the better.
It wasn't always just learning data. We looked at attendance. We looked at behavior data.
So looking at some student behavioral data, we looked at specifically the building overall, what times of day, what days of the week, what months of the year were specifically difficult for students. Then we broke it down to grade level and what grade levels looked in those same areas. And then we talked about some of our Capturing Kids' Hearts experiences and different resources that teachers have in their bag of tricks that they can use to support students in those tough times.
When looking at data and making decisions, it allows us to hear other perspectives on it. We all look at data in different ways, and if we all looked at it the same way, it wouldn't be as important or as exciting. So looking at the data from my perspective and knowing what I'm taking away from it, and then hearing my colleague talk about it and challenging my thinking, it takes us to a level of performance that we wouldn't do if we weren't meeting as a team.
Revisiting the data is a key component to our CLCs.
I haven't seen one yet that played out exactly like it was supposed to. The success in these things, though, is in uncovering what we need to learn and letting that new knowledge and that data drive where the conversation goes.
Looking at all this data all the time and looking at different inventions and looking at different strategies, you're growing. Every time you walk out of a CLC, regardless of what you think you did or didn't, you grew, you had conversations, you talked about our kids and what we can do to make it better, and that's powerful in itself.
Built-in time to discuss needs and ideas and things we could possibly do could never be a bad thing. A good learning cycle always starts with the people involved in it. If it's not on your calendar, your calendar gets filled with so many other things. So having that set day, that set time, I know at my CLC, I'm going to have an opportunity to have that conversation.
One of the most valuable things for an educator is the gift of time. Paid time is even better. So when we have that paid time together, and it's not occasional, it's consistent. So something consistent over a long period of time builds something.
There needs to be a buy-in and an ownership in it. We need everybody actively engaged.
They're far more effective when everyone can be in attendance regularly.
I'm a parent of kids in this district. I care about this district, and to see what we are doing to try to impact student learning, it's an absolutely wonderful thing to watch happen.
If I had to pick one thing that was the best about the CLCs, would be just the opportunity to work and share together as a team.
The best thing about collaborative learning cycles in my mind is just making sure that we have that sense of community. Making sure that other colleagues are feeling what I'm feeling, that we're there to support one another, take our next step forward, and making sure that student achievement is there, but also that we have a sense of community to fall back on when things get tough.
I think whenever teachers have time to get together and work together and collaborate, good things happen.
The CLCs will continue. They are part of our contract, so we will continue to have this gift of time. And what we do every year is we ask for some reflection, some feedback. We look at the way groupings have happened. We do a little bit of tweaking to make sure that the CLCs are as productive as they can be and that they're supporting teachers in the way they need to be supported.
Next year will be year 3 of CLCs, and I think this will be a transition point from the focus on really learning what a CLC is and what it should look like and how do we CLC, to transitioning to really being able to dig deep and trust the process and worry less about what they should look like and how they function and focus more on the impact that they have in the classroom.
My staff want their students to do well. And when you see something that you've learned and you've implemented in the classroom and you see that translate into improved student outcomes, that's huge. That's the bottom line.
If we have teachers who collaborate, teachers who grow together, that's only going to make Bay City Public Schools an even better place.
CLC provides us time to grow together.
Bringing people together for a common goal will bring the community together.
It builds teams, it builds school community, it builds culture.
We are headed in the right direction.
It is going to take our district to the next level.